What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today on this video we'll be calculating the determinant of the third order using the cofactor expansion method. As you can see, we have two questions here. We have question A on the left and question B on the right. Before we continue, I would like to suggest that you pause this video. If you have done some determinants before, try to calculate the determinants and let's see if your answers of these determinants for both these questions is going to be the same as the one that we're going to get at the end of this video. If you can pay attention on both these questions, as you can see, B is a bit tricky. But before I start solving this, you can support our channel by hitting the super thanks button. But if you can't support us via the super thanks, you can always support us via liking, commenting, sharing, and also subscribing to the channel. Just in case you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Now guys, let's start. I'm going to start with question A, which is on the left. If you did watch a video that we calculated the determinant before this one, we were given the square matrix. Now the difference between these questions and the previous ones, it is that these questions here in this video, they require us to actually create the square matrix. So as I said earlier, I'm going to start with question A, which is on our left. And then I'm going to do some rearrangement before I actually create the square matrix. Before I do the rearrangement, we have three equations here. As you can see, we have equation 1, we have equation 2, and equation 3. Now, the rearrangement is supposed to be the first term is supposed to have x, the second term is supposed to have y, the third term is supposed to have z, and all these equations are supposed to be equaling to the constant, which is a number. Let me just say rearrange. Now, if you look at equation 1 there, we have to rearrange it. So when you rearrange it, we're going to keep 2x as it is, and y as it is, and minus 5 z as it is, but we're going to transpose this 11 to the right hand side. So this is going to be negative 11. Now this is our new equation 1. Now let's look at equation 2. As you can see, equation 2 also needs to be rearranged. Remember guys, make sure that the first term on the left, it contains x. As you can see here on our second equation, x is on the right hand side. So we need to transpose this negative x to the left hand side. So when you transpose this negative x to the left hand side, we're going to have positive x. The second term, we're just going to write it as our negative y. Remember, or when you look in our left, we have negative y plus z. And then the last term here is going to be plus z. Since we took this negative x to the left hand side, we will be left with 0 there. Now, this is a new equation 2. As you can see, they are aligning, guys. The first term for both these equations contains x. The second term for both equations also contains y. The last term on both equations contains z. So make sure that you rearrange them in this manner. Now let's rearrange the last one there, which is the third equation. Now, when you look at the third equation, we know that on the left hand side we have 4x, we have negative 3z. But the second term, remember, supposed to contain y. As you can see, the first two equations, the second term contains y. Now, when you look at the third equation there before the rearrangement, we have on the right hand side negative 2y. So we need to transpose this negative 2y to the left hand side, and it's going to become positive 2y. So let's do it. Plus 2y. And then we gonna continue now, write negative 3z. All this is equaling to, remember, we transpose this negative 2y, we're gonna be left with only negative 8. There we go, guys. So this is the rearrangement of the equations. Now let's recap. Let's look at our first terms here. Our first terms contain x. Our second terms, they contain y. The third term, they contain z. Remember, all these are supposed to be on our left hand side, and then on our right hand side are constants. All right, guys, so let's create the square matrix. Let me create more space so that we can able to do the square matrix. Right, so this is what we have here. So if we create our square matrix, we have to write D, and then we equate it to our square matrix. Remember, we are calculating the determinant on this one. When we create your square matrix, you only take the coefficients of the variable. Each and every equation here represents the row. The first row, we're gonna take the coefficient of x, y, and z. So let's do it. So for the first equation, our coefficient of x is going to be 2. Our coefficient of y there is positive 1. And then our coefficient of z is negative 5. There we go. Now let's go to the second row, which is our second equation. Now, our second equation here, our coefficient for x is going to be 1. Our coefficient for y is going to be negative 1. And our coefficient for z is going to be 1. And then the last row, which is the last equation, we're going to take the coefficient of x, which is 4, the coefficient of y, which is 2, and the coefficient of z, which is negative 3. There we go. Guys, this is how you create the square matrix whenever you are calculating the determinant. If you are given equations like this, whether it's 2 by 2 or 3 by 3. Now, so for this one here, guys, I'm going to use the cofactor signs. So the cofactor signs there is follow. It's plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus. So what is happening here, guys, with the cofactor sign is that they alternate. The first entry supposed to be positive. Then from there, you alternate the signs, and so on and so on and so on. So on this method, when you calculate the cofactor, let me just write cofactor here. The formula, it goes like this. It's a sign multiplied by minor. So this is part of the formula that we're going to use when we calculate our determinant. Remember, we're going to calculate our determinant using the cofactor expansion method. Now, before we start calculating our determinant, there is one step that we need to add. We need to select one row or a column. So for this one here, so I'm going to choose the first column. I always recommend that people choose the first column. It makes life easier. It's okay, guys, you can choose any column, any row, but make sure that you only choose one. I prefer to choose the first column for this one here. When you choose the column, it means that the entries that are inside this column, we're going to use them as reference for us to calculate the determinant. So we can say D. Let's select our cofactor. Let's say when the cofactor is 2, we're going to cancel the row and the column where 2 is. Guys, do not confuse this cofactor of 2 with this one here. Remember, we're going to take the 2 that is within that we selected. So do not select the wrong 2 there. So let's cancel our row and our column. There we go. Remember, guys, do not forget, these are the things that you need to do before you do any calculations. Now, let's look at the sign here. Remember, 2 is our first entry there, and the sign there is positive. So meaning, now, this 2 is going to be positive. We can write 2 here, and then we're going to multiply by the minor. Remember, the minor is what is left there, so we're going to have negative 1, 2, 1, negative 3. There we go. So this is when we find the cofactor of 2. Right, we're done with this. Now let's find the cofactor of 1. Cofactor 1. Again, don't get confused, guys. We have a lot of ones on this square matrix, but we're only going to consider this one here inside column that we selected there. Let's cancel the row and the column that has to do with that one. After canceling the row and the column, we have to look at the sign here. Remember, we are moving downwards this time around, so don't get confused. So the sign here is going to be negative. As you can see, our 1 is there, so let's make it negative. But our 1 is positive, so let's make it 1 there. What are we left with here? We're going to multiply it by our minor. So our minor, we have 1, negative 5, 2, and negative 3. We have our square matrix there when the cofactor is 1. So this is our minor. Now the last is going to be the cofactor of 4. When we are looking for the cofactor of 4, again, we have to cancel the row and the column where 4 is. Now, when you look at where 4 is there. And when you look at the cofactor sign there is positive. So it means now this is going to be plus. Then we put 4 there. But what are we left with here? The minor, which is going to be 1 minus 5 minus 1 and 1. So this is the step that you're supposed to do as you calculate the determinant. Let's create the space so that we can go further. All right, let's continue here. Yes, we need to calculate each and every cofactor there. So let's find the cofactor of 2 there. So we know that this is going to be 2, and then inside here we have to calculate the determinant. Our first entry, which is negative 1, multiplied by negative 3. There we go. Minus the multiplication of the second entry and the third entry, which is 1 multiplied by 2. There we go. Now we are done with cofactor of 2. Now let's move to the cofactor of 1. Now when you move to the cofactor of 1, we have negative here, so we can say negative there. And then even if you don't write here, guys, you just calculate the determinant. So when you calculate the determinant, remember, it's the first entry, which is 1, multiplied by the fourth entry, which is negative 3. So it's going to be 1 multiplied by negative 3 minus by the product of the second entry, which is negative 5, and the third entry, which is 2. There we go. So this here, guys, it's our cofactor. So we are done with this one. Now let's do the last one. Now, as you can see, the cofactor of 4, we have positive 4 there. We're still okay. Open bracket. First entry multiplied by the last entry, which is 1 multiplied by 1. So you can say 1 multiplied by 1. And then minus by the product of the second entry multiplied by negative 1. There we go. So we continue here. If you put this on the calculator, our cofactor here is going to be 2. Let's go to the next one. If you put this on a calculator, our cofactor here is going to be negative 7. Right, let's do this one here. If you put it in a calculator, you will have negative 16. Let's create a little bit of space again here. Our final answer for the determinant is going to be 2 minus 7 minus 16. That is going to give us negative 21. I hope this was not difficult, guys. I know there were extra steps that were required to be done, but after those steps is the same as what we did on previous videos. All right, guys, just in case you don't know how to calculate the determinant, or you don't know how to calculate the cofactor, as well as how to create the square matrix, I've done videos on those things. I'll leave a playlist that contains all the things that I've mentioned earlier. Just go to that playlist, go and watch those videos on those playlists. They will help you to understand why did we do what we did. The very same playlist will pop up on the top right of the video that you're watching here. So we are done with the first one, guys. So how about we do the second question? So here's our question 2, guys. Let's analyze this. First of all, let's look at these equations here. Yes, we do have 3 equations, but these 2 equations here, they are missing some variables. Equation 2, it doesn't have variable y, and equation 3, it doesn't have variable x. So it means that for the coefficient of y, we have to put 0 because we don't have y on the second equation. And then as for the third equation, for the coefficient of x, we have to put 0 because we do not have x. So let's create our square matrix. Determinant is going to be equal to our square matrix. So we're going to take the coefficient of these variables. But if you look at these variables here, we have them in a fraction. It doesn't really matter, guys. You don't really have to change them because 1 over x, 1 over y, 1 over z, these here are our variables on this. So the coefficient are just going to be the number that we multiply with these. So let's look at the first row there. On the first row, we have 1 over x, meaning our coefficient is going to be positive 1. So the second entry is going to be negative 2. As you can see, we have negative 2 over y. The third entry for this one is going to be positive 1. Remember, 1 over z there. Right, now let's look at our second equation. Do not forget that our second equation, it does not have y, meaning wherever y is supposed to be 0. So for this one here, we have 2 over x. So it means it is multiplied by 2. So our coefficient is going to be 2 for this one. As for y, we have 0 because equation 2, it does not have 1 over y. And then the last one here, we have negative 1 because we have negative 1 over z. I hope you guys are paying attention to this because it can be tricky if you're not paying attention. Now let's look at the third equation then. Now our third equation, it does not have x. Instead of having x, it has 1 over y and negative 2 over z. Right, so meaning for x, which is our first column, is going to be 0. For y, we have 1 over y, which is going to be 1. And then also for z, we have negative 2 over z, which is going to be negative 2. So we have our square matrix here. I hope you can able to understand this, guys. Really, it's not that difficult. So for this one as well, we're gonna use the cofactor signs. So let's just redo them here. We have plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, plus. Remember, the signs here, they are alternating, guys. Let us not forget that. Right, now that we have the square matrix, we have to select a row or a column. On the last question, we selected a column. Now, let's just select a row. I will select the first row here, guys. I prefer selecting the first row or column, which makes my life easier. Right, let's continue. D is equaling to. Now, since we are calculating the determinant using the cofactor expansion, we need to calculate the cofactors of these entries on this row. Now, we can say cofactor of 1, right? So we are talking about this one. Do not confuse this one with this one here and that one there, by the way. Now, the cofactor of 1, when we select it, it means now we need to cancel the row and the column that this one is part of. Now, as for the row, we are canceling this one that we selected already, and then we have to cancel the column as well that has to do with this one here. There we go. It means now we're going to be left with this minor here. But let us not forget that the sign here for this one is positive. So let's make it positive. Now we can say 1 multiplied by our minor, which is going to be 0 minus 1, 1 minus 2. There we go. So this is the minor or the square matrix that is left here after cancelling the row and the column that has to do with 1 there. Now that you're done here, we move to the next one where we can say cofactor -2. Remember, we are moving with the row, guys. So we're going to cancel the column and the row where -2 is. All right, let's continue. When you look at the sign here, this is going to be negative. As you can see, 2 is there. It's going to be minus, but our 2 is also negative. So what is it that you are left with here? Our minor or the square matrix is going to be 2, -1, 0, -2. Now that we are finished with this one, let's do the other one where the cofactor is 1. Let's create more space so that we can able to do the other. Let's do the cofactor of 1, the last one here. We're going to cancel the row and the column where this one is part of. We can see the sign here, which is where this one is positive, so we can make it positive there. So from there we're gonna be left with, remember this is 1, our square matrix is gonna be 2, 0, 0, 1. There we go. So this step is done. Let's go to the next step, determinant. So on this step here, guys, we're gonna calculate the determinant of these minors and then we multiply them with these numbers here. So we know that we have 1 here, and then we need to find our determinant here. Determinant is the first entry, in this case is 0 multiplied by -2 minus the second entry multiplied by the third entry, which is -1 multiplied by 1. Now let's go to the second one here, the cofactor of 2. With negative and negative, this is going to give us 2. Then here we have to calculate the determinant. We have first entry multiplied the second entry, which is 2 multiplied by -2 minus by the product of the second entry and the third entry. There we go, which is -1 multiplied by 0. And the last one here is going to be plus 1. And then we do the very same thing there. We're going to multiply the first entry, which is 2, with the last entry, which is 1, minus by the second entry multiplied by the third entry, which is 0 multiplied by 0. So let's create more space here, guys, so that we can have our answer. Right, let's continue. So we're going to put this in the calculator. It's going to give us 1. And you go to the next one there. You put it in the calculator. It's going to give us -8. And then the last one, which is this one here, when you put it in the calculator, it's going to give us +2. So our determinant here, guys, is going to be -5. Guys, this was not that difficult. Yes, it was a bit tricky because we didn't have the variable of x and y in some of the equations, but it was doable. Again, we were given x, y, z in terms of fractions. That didn't matter because we are only calculating for the determinant. All right, guys, I hope this helped you to understand, because really it was not that difficult. Just in case you did not understand, you can go to the point where you got lost and try to rewatch the video until you understand. And if that doesn't help, you can always leave a comment in the comment section. I will try to explain to my level best. All right, if this video helped you to understand how to calculate the determinant of the third order given in this type of a format, Do not forget to like, share, comment, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to the channel. All right. If you want to support this channel, you can also hit the super thanks button. But normal like, normal thanks, and sharing the video will be highly appreciated, guys. At the end of this video, I will leave the playlist of determinants. You can go to that playlist and watch, because most of the things that we did here, we have done videos on them, and the playlist contains those videos. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Till next time, cheers.